Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining on this Monday and also the week of the SCDAA convention. I know that's also exciting. We wanted to share with the community. Well, first off, I'm Mariah Scott. I am the research coordinator with exa-cel. And we wanted to share that in September, the FDA announced that they would have a FDA advisory committee for one of the two gene therapies that applied for approval in December for sickle cell disease. So we wanted to share with the community some background information on FDA advisory committees and why they're so important, especially for sickle cell disease. As we're aware, we have very limited therapies for sickle cell, so to see gene therapy being approved is really exciting. So we wanted to share some more information and how can you get involved and engage with the advisory committee later this month. So some housekeeping rules. Today's webinar is going to be recorded. The recording will be available on the exa-cel's YouTube channel. During the meeting, we do ask to please minimize your distractions and mute your mic. However, we are encouraging video participation to make the group feel more engaged during discussions. And we do have time for some questions afterwards. To go over our agenda, so I provided some background information of the FDA advisory committees. The importance of these committees, so why does the FDA hold these committees and why they're so important, especially for sickle cell disease. The history of FDA advisory committees for all of the sickle cell disease therapies that are available right now. And important information regarding the advisory committee for exa-cel gene therapy on October 31st. So to start off, what is an FDA advisory committee? The Food and Drug Administration, FDA, is responsible for evaluating the efficacy and safety. When they ask for efficacy, they're looking how well does the drug work on the disease of new therapies. And sometimes this requires outside expertise. So the advisory committee is composed of outside experts to help the FDA come to the conclusion of approving these therapies. So the advice they're looking for primarily are the safety, how well it works, and the appropriate use of these products. Overall, there are about 49 FDA advisory committees. So why did the FDA use advisory committees? They want to include independent experts that work outside of the government. So they're looking for outside advice outside of the government space. They work towards an open government by giving the public a voice. And this is why it's so important for the sickle cell community to be involved as well. So for us to give a voice as well. And it encourages patients, caregivers, healthcare professionals, and many more from the public to share their experiences and submit public comments, which we will get into further details. When does the FDA use these committees? The FDA can choose any time during their approval process to convene an advisory committee. Sometimes they can ask for convening after the approval process as well. Sometimes when there's insufficient evidence during the clinical trial of a therapy. Also, they can use an advisory committee when a pharmaceutical company applies for accelerated approval or fast track. And one of those examples was the FDA used advisory committee, and that advisory committee was the vaccine-related biological products advisory committee for the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine booster. So there's different types of applications for the FDA and designations. So we have new drug application, drug applications for over-the-counter. These two gene therapies specifically applied for biologics license applications. And there are different types of designations. So the previous example of the vaccine used fast track. There's accelerated approval. breakthrough therapy and priority review. The two gene therapies out for approval for sickle cell right now, they designated for priority review, which means the FDA's goal is to make decisions on the application within 6 months of their application. So who makes up these committees? So we have scientific experts. They look for biologists. Sometimes there can be epidemiologists, statisticians, chemists, clinician researchers. They can vary in terms of their expertise. Consumer representatives, the knowledge of consumer rights and their needs. Someone from industry, a representative, they present how specific issues can affect the research industry. They're not specifically from the pharmaceutical company that applied for that gene therapy. And at the end of this advisory committee, usually that industry representative may or may not have the ability to vote. And then there's the FDA patient representative, a patient representative from the community that's being represented for the therapy. And they're recruited through the patient representative program, and they help provide input and share disease treatment experiences. So I like this quote from a former director that used to be on FDA's advisory committee. And it shows how important these advisory committees are, especially to the public. They often represent the FDA's first public decision of a new medical product and can be a valuable source of information for patients, healthcare providers, and others who are interested in the product. So again, it's an open avenue between government and public to share their experiences of whatever the disease the advisory committee is addressing. So these are the primary roles of the FDA advisory committee. So at the end, during this convening, they want to provide independent expert advice as the FDA evaluates products. They want to review and evaluate the effectiveness and safety of this therapy. Discussions among the advisory committee are to help ensure the public is clear about what are the expectations from the FDA. And this process to be very transparent, independent, and open to the public. So some history of previous FDA advisory committees for sickle cell disease. First, we have hydroxyurea, and then we get into more information about Indari, and including the information on the other sickle cell disease therapies. So hydroxyurea was the very first FDA advisory committee convening in December of 1997. The advisory committee voted unanimous decision on recommended approval of hydroxyurea. However, the panel advised on conducting further studies on the carcinogenicity of hydroxyurea. So that is why FDA added the label to require blood counts to be measured every 2 weeks. Then we have Indari, that was on May 24th, 2017. This was the first sickle cell drug to be approved after 20 years and for pediatrics. We have our very own Marcus and actually Valentine that spoke at this advisory committee. And 2 other speakers, they were there, and they spoke in front of the Oncologic Drug Advisory Committee, or ODAC. So then it was later approved by the FDA, July 7th of that same year. So usually you'll see the FDA approvals within a month or 2 after these advisory committees. And on the terms of Oxbryta, they applied for accelerated approval on June 26th of 2019. It was later approved. Now, the reason why they didn't have advisory committee was there was significant evidence of safety and efficacy during those clinical trials. So after seeing the data and the results from clinical trials, that's when the FDA can deem an AdCom or advisory committee is not needed. And that was the same for Adakveo. Adakveo applied for a priority review on May 16th in 2019. and later approved in November. So saying the FDA saw significant evidence on their safety and efficacy during those clinical trials. So they deemed that the AdCom was not necessary. So as I mentioned, there is another gene therapy that applied for FDA approval, exa-cel from Bluebird Bio, and they will not require FDA Advisory Committee. They also applied for priority review as well. So previously, FDA committees have recommended an approval of other Bluebird Bio gene therapies for beta thalassemia. So they do not require a FDA AdCom at this time. So there's a Prescription Drug User Fee Act, or the PDUFA date, as you may hear it. That is the deadline for the FDA to respond to the application. So this is a date where the FDA can respond by approving an action for their application. Usually you see 10 months after the drug application has been accepted, 6 months if the drug is given priority review. So the PDUFA date for exa-cel will be December 20th of this year. So moving on to the exa-cel for this advisory committee. The specific title for this advisory committee is Cellular Tissue and Gene Therapies Advisory Committee. They were convened for the Vertex Pharmaceutical Priority Review on October 31st, 2023. I know it's going to be a great Halloween. So the FDA will provide some meeting materials and background information, and that is available to the public at least 2 days, business days before the meeting on October 31st. So we did get the link here on the advisory committee calendar where they will provide that background material. Public participation. So the meeting, to actually see the meeting, you don't have to register. It would be live and broadcasted on their YouTube from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. The public can submit comments. The comments should be received on or before October 24th. Those comments would be provided to the committee and to be read during the meeting. Any comments received after that date until October 30th, they will go to the FDA and the FDA will take them into consideration. You can submit comments electronically through a portal, which I will show how you can do that. And then you can also submit comments through written submission through this mailing address. Oral, they also have oral presentations. So approximately for an hour between 12:35 and 1:35 on that day, October 31st, the public, any public participation who would like to give oral comments, usually they give them between 3 to 5 minutes each for each speaker. And you can submit a brief statement along with your name, email address, direct phone number to contact, and an approximate time you would like to request to speak. However, this has to be submitted by October 16th. So by next Monday, if you would like to give oral presentations at this advisory committee, that information has to be submitted by October 16th. And then you will receive a confirmation to speak by October 18th by 6 p.m. We also provided the following information to be included, which is the docket number. This docket number is helpful too when you submit written comments as well. In order to register as a speaker, you can contact these two contacts at the FDA. So I also included how to submit an electronic submission for public comments. So this is one way you can. So first you will access the portal, which is regulations.gov. And you will copy the same docket number provided in the previous slide. And then you enter it in the search function. Once you click search, you're going to see these 3 tabs, and you're going to click on dockets. Once you click on dockets, you're going to see the Cellular Tissue and Gene Therapies Advisory Committee. And that's the section that you're going to click on next. After you get to the Cellular Tissue and Gene Therapy Advisory Committee page, again, you're going to see another 3 tabs and click on Browse Documents. And then that's when you're going to see the Sickle Cell Disease Advisory Committee. Once you click on that, you're going to see a blue button that says comment. And then that's how you're going to submit your written comments. There's also another way. So there was also a newsletter that went out today. There's an alternative way to submit comments. The link that was provided in the newsletter today was the Federal Register. Once you click on the Federal Register link, you're going to see the same title, Cellular Tissue and Gene Therapies Advisory Committee. And there's going to be like a green button that says submit a formal comment. The same questions pop up for any comments that you would like to provide. So the PDUFA date, the date where the FDA should make a decision on the application, is December 8th of this year. We also provided some additional information and toolkits to help providing testimony, public conduct during the committee meeting. And from exa-cel, we have a toolkit that can help submitting written comments, which is our Medicaid DERB toolkit. So please feel free to contact me for any additional questions. I'd be more than happy to help with your written comments, help you register as a speaker, help you submit comments, anything to help with register or more information about this outcome. So open up to you guys. Is there any questions?
Great. Thank you so much, Mariah. Oh, it looks like we have a question. Go ahead, Tessa.
Hi, Tessa.
Hi, thank you. This was super helpful. And yeah, really comprehensive. I guess one thing came up as you were talking. I think you were mentioning the different folks that are on the advisory committee for the FDA, and one of them was a consumer representative. And so I just thought that was interesting, and I didn't know if you had any more like details about that, because I typically would think of the consumer being the community receiving the treatment, but it looked like that had its own separate kind of bucket. So just curious about it.
Yeah, sure. So consumer representatives, they can analyze the data from clinical trials. They're helping to research the design of the data, and they're kind of act as the liaison between the consumer and the public. So any data that's with the clinical trial or discuss the benefits and risks and safety and efficacy of the product will help the public understand that as well in terms of what exactly is getting approved and how the FDA is coming to the decision of approval.
Hi, Mariah.
Hi.
Hi, Hyacinth Burton. Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned about Bluebird Bio's gene therapy, and that thank you. And that are you saying they don't need, are they going also for FDA approval? Or
Yes.
okay, so they have to go through the process as well. I thought I saw that they don't have to, or something like that. Can you correct me?
Sure. So lovo-cel from Bluebird Bio, they applied to the FDA to get approved. However, they don't have to go through the FDA Advisory Committee because they found enough significant information and data from the other approval of the gene therapies Bluebird Bio had for a similar disease, beta thalassemia.
Okay, but not for sickle cell disease. They have
Correct.
to go through, okay, so they have to go through the approval process for sickle cell disease.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I would just say to the group, if you can spread the news, submit comments yourself, that would be really important. And let us know if you have any questions. We intend on putting this video on our social media and then also doing more follow-up, but we're hoping that we can have high engagement so that FDA can really hear from the sickle cell disease community.
Yes, and we will be at the convention as well. So if you see us at the convention, you have any questions, feel free to ask any one of us. We're more than happy to help. Well, thanks everyone for coming.